A confrontation with migrants is fueling calls for tougher immigration enforcement. It comes amid a back-and-forth legal battle about how much power state authorities have at the border.
The dysfunction in the Texas House during 2023 highlights the need for a change at the Capitol.
A push for change at the Texas Capitol. We meet the challenger looking to defeat House Speaker Dade Phelan. Artificial intelligence is already making a mark in Texas. How the state is working to find ways to use the technology and minimize concerns about AI.
Produced from the Capitol in Austin and airing statewide, this is the award-winning State of Texas.
Hi there, and thank you for joining us. I'm Monica Madden.
I'm Ryan Chandler. Josh Hinkle is on assignment. Drama in the courts this week as Texas challenges the balance of power on the border.
And a confrontation Thursday along the border in El Paso is fueling calls for tougher enforcement. A group of more than 100 migrants forced their way through a razor wire fence. Then they pushed their way past National Guard troops to get to the border wall. Guard members and Border Patrol agents regrouped and detained the migrants before transporting them to a processing center.
That rush across the border comes amid uncertainty about what power state authorities have to arrest people that they believe illegally crossed the border. The U.S. Supreme Court on Tuesday allowed Senate Bill 4 to take effect. That's the Texas law that lets state authorities arrest people they suspect illegally crossed.
Hours later, a federal appeals court blocked the law again. The legal battle over SB 4 is far from settled, but law enforcement along the border is already grappling with how to implement the law.
We're the busiest station between Del Rio to El Paso.
Sheriff Thaddeus Cleveland and his 5 deputies oversee 54 miles of shared border with Mexico in Terrell County. A former Border Patrol agent himself, Cleveland says he supports Senate Bill 4.
It gives us another tool in the belt.
But says he and his deputies will still heavily rely on their federal partners, even if SB 4 gives him the power to arrest migrants for illegal entry.
When we apprehend an illegal alien, we call out Border Patrol. They'll determine if that person's here legally or illegally, and then take possession of them. I foresee us still doing that.
His jail can only hold 7 people, and the nearest port of entries are hours away.
That's going to take more man hours and manpower from my own office to transport them that way.
Another aspect of SB 4 allows state judges to order migrants to return to Mexico as an alternative to being jailed here. In the Valley,
those judges have a lot of discretion.
Hidalgo County Judge Richard Cortez questions how state judges will take on immigration cases if the law stands.
It's going to be a little hushpod of who wants to enforce it and who doesn't. I think a lot of that's going to be ideology.
In Austin, Governor Greg Abbott vowing Texas will keep fighting, no matter what happens in the courts.
To arrest people coming across the razor wire barriers on our border, and we will continue to use our arrest authority and arrest people coming across the border illegally.
You heard the governor refer to the authority to arrest migrants. For more than 2 years, the state has been making thousands of arrests under Texas trespassing laws.
All right, there's a lot to unpack here. So for some insight, we've brought our friend Aaron Torres, the Austin Bureau correspondent for the Dallas Morning News. Aaron, you've done some great work at tracking the back and forth in the courts with this. When can we expect some legal certainty that will tell us where this law is going to end up in the long run?
That won't be for a few weeks. So right now, the Fifth Circuit still has not issued their ruling on whether the law can go back into effect or remain in pause. There's another hearing scheduled for April 3rd in front of the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. Whenever the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals makes that decision after that April 3rd hearing, either Texas or the Department of Justice will appeal back to the Supreme Court to decide if the law will stay on pause or if it'll go into effect throughout the appeal process. So it'll be a few weeks.
And during the hearing in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, it seemed that the panel of judges, were maybe in support of some aspects of this law, but also might strike down others. I mean, where do you see it as if there's been more signals of how the courts might rule on this?
Well, it kind of depends. It's kind of hard to know because asking prodding questions doesn't sometimes indicate how the court or the judges will rule on the law. And you also have to understand that the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals is a fairly conservative court, but the 3-judge panel that heard this case was an a Biden appointee, a Trump appointee, and a George Bush appointee. The initial stay that was issued Wednesday night was a 2-1 decision. So we believe that it'll likely be a 2-1 decision, again, keeping the law on pause.
Y'all know, even before this has taken effect, we've seen a lot of challenges and complications with this law. We've seen multiple police departments from Austin to Fort Worth say that they don't think that this is their responsibility. They think it might make their jobs harder. What kind of challenges has this back and forth in the courts brought to police departments who are trying to figure out what to do here?
Well, obviously, it's brought several challenges. I was speaking, and I think a lot of reporters are speaking to like border area sheriffs who live in border communities, and they kind of told us the same thing, that like some of them said that they were ready to enforce the law. The Kinney County Sheriff told me a few days ago that they were ready to go to enforce the law when the ruling came down. I spoke to the Maverick County Sheriff. He said they were not ready to enforce the law. The Zapata County Sheriff, I believe, told me they were not also ready to enforce the law. They were waiting for DPS to give them some guidance on this.
And that doesn't even factor in just the legal ping pong we've been experiencing. It was in effect for a mere few hours before getting blocked again. So there's also that layer of complication for these law enforcement officials as they're trying to figure out what their legal duty is.
Yeah, and we haven't really received much clarity from the state of Texas on what exactly is going on. I haven't received any statement or clarity from the Department of Public Safety. The governor's office gave me a statement late Wednesday night, I believe, where they said that they're still in communication with the Texas Department of Public Safety and state law enforcement across the state to see how they would enforce the law. However, they declined to give details because, according to the governor's office, they didn't want to give a heads up to the cartels who would be smuggling and bringing drugs and weapons into the border. So that's why they didn't want to publicize any additional details, is what they told me.
Aaron, I'm glad you're here, because 3 minds is better than 1 when we try to grasp all these complicated factors. So we really appreciate it.
No, thank you so much.
From tracking accidents to answering your healthcare questions, artificial intelligence is being used now in Texas. We look at the work underway to make sure the technology is being used effectively and ethically. A push for new leadership at the Texas Capitol. A challenger aims to defeat House Speaker Dade Phelan. How he's promising big changes to the way lawmakers do business.